find a young lady here. All right, there's one back there. I can't even see up there. Right there. Who's jumping up and down? I saw somebody jumping up and down. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Erica Bryce, and I'm a proud resident of the city of Harrisburg. I wanted to let you know, here in the city of Harrisburg, our home ownership average is 35 to 40% ownership, which is an inverse of the national average. And I've heard you in different speeches talk about what you would do to encourage more home ownership. So I'd like you to talk about that, but also how you would encourage it in the urban areas, not just encourage more suburban sprawl.
Well, look, the first thing I want to encourage is people not losing their homes, which is a very serious problem. And I don't know the specifics of what's happening in Harrisburg, but I can tell you that across the country we're looking at potentially 2 million or more home foreclosures in the next several years because so many people got caught up in either deceptive loans, predatory loans, teaser rates on mortgages without understanding that they wouldn't be able to pay them back. And so as you see more home foreclosures around the country, then that depresses property values and housing prices in general. And then you've got people who are what's called underwater, which means that their mortgage is worth more than their house because property values decline. And at that point, some people decide to just walk away because their attitude is, I'll never get out from under this mortgage. And so we've got to deal with the housing crisis, not just for the homeowner who stands to lose their home, but also because the community is affected when there are foreclosures. And that's what's happening in the financial system right now. See, all these banks who are giving out all these subprime loans, making a lot of money, but a lot of money. Making all these subprime loans, but now they've got all this bad debt. Nobody knows how much bad debt is out there. And so now banks and investment banks and hedge funds, all these folks, they don't want to lend money to anybody because they don't know who's got all these bad debts on their books. And that is really locking up credit, which is making it harder for good businesses and legitimate people with good credit to be able to get mortgages. So we've got to stabilize the housing market, and what I've proposed is to work with a plan that Chris Dodd, the senator from Connecticut, has. It would have Federal Housing Authority work with both the lenders and the borrowers to work out terms so that we could get a fixed rate mortgage for everybody who's willing to stay in their home and pay it. And the lenders would lose a little bit of money, the borrowers would lose a little bit of money, but we would have stabilized the housing market. That's step number one. Step number two, by the way, is to put in better regulations. And I've had a bill called the Stop Fraud Act for 2 years now that cracks down on predatory lending and makes sure that people know what they're getting into and that the terms of their loans and all the fees and all that stuff is very clearly stated. So we don't see this problem come up again and again. Now, if we can do that, then the next step is to figure out how do we encourage affordable housing construction across the country, because there's not a single metropolitan community across the country where if you make the minimum wage and you work full time, you can afford the rent, much less buy a house. And the key there is that the government has to get back into the business of helping with home construction, not just with loans to buy the home, but also the construction itself. Federal government used to be involved heavily. That's how the suburbs got originally built, was because the FHA was created for GIs when they came back home. And we haven't seen that same kind of commitment. So I want to set up an affordable housing trust fund that will start working with local communities to rebuild affordable housing. And you're exactly right. We should start by filling in urban areas instead of encouraging suburban subdivisions, because not only do you have some housing stock there that could be renovated that would be very good for people, but also because environmentally it's much better. Instead of having people driving an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to and fro from work, they can actually take mass transit. They can walk. And that's something that we're going to have to think long term. It's also the way that we're going to relieve traffic congestion, which is eating up people's time, and they're spending less time with their kids because they're, commuting all the time. So this is going to be a top priority, but we're going to have to start with dealing with the current possible foreclosure crisis before we can start thinking about how we're going to build a lot of new housing.